Hey everybody, Steph here. Please don't mind the messy desk. I got some freeze and fuse, a falling apart red hot poker, various projects. I don't have a lot of space to work, and this is a reshoot of the introduction to a video that I've been meaning to get up for 2 weeks, but unfortunately, I somehow managed to delete it because some days I have squirrel brain. Anyway, today we're going to talk about slumping pieces of glass to get this sort of shape, but without using fancy, expensive slumping molds or slumper formers. These serpentine formers I have right here from Color de Verre, and I love them, but they're 40 some odd a set for the ceramics. And while they do a great job of doing this sort of stuff and giving you this wavy look, let me show you what's so an easier way, that was a terrible way of saying it, to get the same effect for less money. As my whole camera goes wobbling, my apologies. Some cheap chalk. There aren't a lot of fusing with glass and chalk videos out there. I know Glass with a Past has one for using chalk to make holes in your stuff, but I haven't seen a whole lot of other ones, and my mother turned me on to using just cheap sidewalk chalk. The catch being is you don't have to use just Crayola chalk or blackboard chalk, but you can use, this is dollar store chalk that I've had for about 8 years. And so what I'm going to do is a little test. And I'm going to use a 5" by 1/2" piece of clear, 5" by 1/2" piece of white, and a 5" by 1/2" piece of sienna, because it happened to be a piece I had available. And I am going to slump them. I have 2 sets of these, and what I'm going to do is slump them over the large sidewalk chalk and over the Crayola chalk. And it is Crayola brand that I'm using, but I imagine you can use any sort of cheap blackboard chalk. And I'm going to slump them, and we're going to see which one results in a wavy, how the waves turn out, what gives you the waviest, because I'm going to assume that this, because it's clear with the least amount of pigment, will wave the most, because it's going to be the softest glass that will react with gravity the most. So I'm going to assume clear is going to react the most. White is going to have the least amount of wave to it because white has the most pigment in it. And sienna, because it's a heavily pigmented transparent, because this turns like coffee colored, root beer colored when it's struck, that sienna is going to be somewhere in the middle. Now that is my theory, and we will see how it actually turns out at the end. The results are kind of interesting. Like I said, I'm filming this after everything's done because I lost the introduction and I know what's going on. As you can see, these pieces are not exactly rectangular. These are just sample pieces that I'm using for the introduction because I actually have, and I'll sneak you a peek and show you, the finished pieces right here. The results are kind of interesting, and even if you're not real interested in fusing wavy bits of glass, I love them for things like sugar skulls, and also they're useful for my next basic projects where we're going to be doing some pieces and use these as accent marks. Have you ever heard of Vasily Kandinsky? Anyway, hold on a sec and I'll take you over to my kiln and we will get started. Okay, so here we are at my Vitrograph kiln. It's a little weird to be shooting during daylight because I usually shoot these videos at 3 o'clock in the morning. And as you can see, I've got 4 pieces of chalk, small chalk, 3 pieces of big. And again, like I said, I just took it to the concrete outside and flattened it. These being a stiffer chalk and a little better quality, didn't flatten quite as much, but they will work. Because I'm working in a small surface, this whole thing in the interior is 8 inches. I had to snug everybody up a bit, but that's okay. So I'm going to lay these out, and I know somebody's going to panic because they're not perfectly laid out, but I will try and get them pretty straight. Because I do want fairly even curvage. And these are just test pieces. I am not worried about how they turn out. I do have plans for using them, or not using them, but using curvy pieces in my next video, but we aren't going to worry about that with these because I don't want to use these colors. But there we go. They're set up. I'm going to assemble the kiln. 400 degrees an hour to 1225, hold for 15 minutes, and then shut off, simply because these are example pieces not planning to be used in any project. And I will be back to film the results. Okay, so here's a bit of handheld shaky cam footage a la the Blair Witch. You can see that the finished pieces have slumped, and that the sidewalk chalk went from red and orange to white. Everything still has cohesion. I could probably pick up and draw with all my chalk. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it back to the table, well, not the chalk, but the glass, and we're going to talk about it. So this is the 3 pieces, now that they've been slumped, on the sidewalk chalk. And you can tell that they weren't evenly spaced because this is a much lower dip than this one, so this was further apart. But what I think is interesting is the way I'm telling how well they slumped is to line them up and see who has the highest divots. And interestingly enough, not by a large margin, but a little bit, the sienna appears to have had a much bigger slump than the clear. And if you can hold it, and I don't know if we can see it on camera, I'm trying to look, you can actually see there is a slight gap, 1/16 of an inch between the two. And when I hold it with the white, you can also see almost the same gap. Now, when I put these two this way and feel them, they're almost the same. The white slumped just a hair less than the sienna, but the sienna slumped more. But what you'd think is this, being 3mm Tecto with no color additives, would slump the most, and in reality, it slumped the least. So that's kind of interesting. I do wonder if it would slump more if I went higher, because I only did go to 1225. Here is the same thing for the sidewalk chalk. And this one you can see a gap between, I don't know if you can see it, but I can see a gap between the sienna and the white, showing that the sienna slumped more, and I can feel it. And for this one, the white, I'll flip that around because this one was obviously, again, not perfectly spaced. This side is higher than this side. Again, the clear did not slump as much as either the white or the sienna, which is interesting to me because, like I said, I would have expected, pardon the bugs in the frame, I would have expected clear to slump the most, white to slump the least, and sienna to be in between. But instead, maybe the minerals made more of an impact than I thought. You're learning with me. But I can feel right here the slight change in heights. And this is definitely, 1/16 of an inch again. So let's see. Yeah, you can just see it. I don't know if you can. Let's see if this one shows right there. You can see the gap. You can see where my finger, where there's light, and then there's finger. And then there's light, and then there's finger. So that's kind of interesting. Again, maybe you ought to go 1240 when you try this. Sacrifice a bit of scrap. See how it works for you. These don't wiggle enough for me to do what I want. And when I was doing these, it's been a year. I don't remember what I fused them to. I may have had to go to 1240. So I'm not certain. And I'm not real good about keeping logs. I am a chaos monster. So I couldn't tell you what these were, but I'm going to bet higher than 1225. I'm sorry I don't have a more enlightening bit of information to give all y'all, but hopefully this was kind of interesting. And keep this in mind and maybe slump yourself up some pieces that are a few inches long and thin, 1/4 inch, 1/8 of an inch if you can do it, for the next easy project that's coming out in a couple of weeks. We're going to be making circles without a circle cutter. Thank you for watching, and as always, I'll see you next week.
Hey, it's Steph, and I appreciate you watching my video. YouTube will recommend another one down below, so if you want to keep watching, just click on it.